radio waves in this room? Let's try to catch some. I don't see any. Have you heard the joke? How many girls on stage does it take to catch a radio wave? None. It takes a receiver. A receiver is an electronic device, like a radio, that is designed to catch radio waves. Works a lot better than a net to catch radio waves. You're using radio waves anytime you listen to the radio or many times when watching TV. Did you know that in the Pittsburgh area there are about 78 radio stations? About 35 are AM stations and more than 40 are FM stations. AM and FM, I hear you say. Now what are those and why should I know about them? Now I guess we need to learn about AM and FM, and in order to discuss AM and FM, we need to know about radio waves. Let's start our story in 1887 with Heinrich Hertz. I have demonstrated the existence of the radio wave. This is my receiver. It's just a copper wire. With a magnifying glass, I could see a spark, a tiny electric spark causing these unseen waves traveled a few meters from an induction coil. While he was a great physicist, Hertz was not a great entrepreneur, so he discovered radio waves, but saw no purpose in them. In 1901, there was an inventor and physicist named Marconi. I created the first radio broadcast across the Atlantic, started a telegraph company, and made modern radio possible. Marconi's radio transmission went out in all directions, including space. Within 9 years, it passed the star Sirius. Sirius XM, anyone? It has already passed over 1,000 stars, and it is still traveling today. Did you know that on November 2nd, 1920, Westinghouse's KDKA began the first regular radio broadcast to the public? These broadcasts were held in Pittsburgh, PA, and were the first ever broadcast. They chose November 2nd because it was Election Day. People gathered around radio receivers and were then able to hear the results sooner than they could read them in the newspaper. This made more people tune into the broadcast. Okay, so we have electricity, a signal that is sent to a radio transmitter's, a radio station's antenna. And to your radio, the receiver captures it. But how does that signal get from the antenna to the air? The signal is an electric current, and every electric current is actually electrons moving in a wire. These electrons do not have a strong bond with the rest of the atom, and it just takes a slight amount of energy to push the electron away from its atom. These electrons are moving back and forth, and they create an electromagnetic field. That field generates a wave that moves at the speed of light with the frequency of the electron movement. While you can't see them, let's use the waves you know to help us understand. The top of the wave, the crest, and the bottom of the wave, the trough. Actually, the wave displayed in the activity is a representation of the back and forth movement of electrons. If the wave has a frequency of 200,000 hertz, cycles per second, the electrons are moving back and forth 200,000 times a second. That's a lot. Now you might recognize the word Hertz. Yep, remember Heinrich? That's his last name. There's no magic behind this. It's just the way things work. Just as the electrons move in the wire, they move in the transmitter's antenna. And just as an electromagnetic field is created around the wire, an electromagnetic field is created around the antenna. But there's a difference between the wire and the antenna. The wire is shielded, surrounded by another wire, to keep the electromagnetic field in. The antenna, on the other hand, is designed to radiate the electromagnetic field out and into the air surrounding the antenna. The electromagnetic field travels from the antenna in all directions and at the speed of light. It travels until it hits your radio's antenna as well as hundreds of other receiving antennas. And what happens at the receiving antenna? An electromagnetic field produces current in a wire, or antenna. This current is then amplified and processed by the radio, the receiver. Frequency is the wavelength of the radio wave. When the radio wave wavelength is small, it's called high frequency, and when it's wide, it's called low frequency. Amplitude is the height of the radio wave. When the radio wave wavelength is short, it has low amplitude, and when the radio wave is tall, it has high amplitude. Now that we know all about frequency and amplitude, we can start learning about AM and FM radios. FM radio works the same way that AM radio works. The difference is in how the carrier wave is altered. With AM radio, the amplitude or overall strength of the signal is varied to incorporate the sound information. With FM, the frequency of the carrier signal is varied. FM signals have a great advantage over AM signals. With an AM broadcast, these changes result in static. With an FM broadcast, slight changes in amplitude don't matter. The result, no static at all. Besides the radio waves we just talked about and are familiar with for commercial TV and radio, there are many other radio waves that are used for other purposes. By changing some of the properties of the radio wave, it can be used in other applications and functions. Radio waves are certainly useful. So now let's talk about UHF, RFID, and a dragon tag. When high frequency turns into ultra high frequency, or UHF, RFID can then operate. RFID stands for Radio Frequency Identification. RFID chips can be built into things like credit cards that enable your store or merchant to get your financial information and charge your accounts in seconds. At my school, we give each student an RFID tag. We call it a dragon tag. Our school mascot is a dragon tag. The tag works by sending a UHF radio wave to a receiver. When it reaches the receiver, it shows what buses the student should be riding, or how kids are getting home. But you can program it to do other things too. Okay, I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of a GPS before, but does anyone know what it actually stands for? Well, it stands for Global Positioning System. GPSs work when satellites that are circling around the globe about twice a day send signals to GPS devices, receivers, on land and on the ocean. The GPS receivers we have allow us to access our information. They may give us a map in our car to tell us how to get someplace we've never been before. Some people who work with GPSs work in 12 different monitor stations all day. They control the satellite, and if they mess up all of our wireless devices. Alright, now I want to show you some pictures. This picture shows the difference of amplitude and frequency. And this picture shows where RFID falls in the electromagnetic spectrum. The last picture I want to show you is this one. It shows people working with radio broadcasting engineering. Do you notice anything about this picture? Well, I'll give you a hint. There are no women working. Now you might be saying, well, this was in the past. We've changed this now, right? Well, actually, no, we haven't. When you look up radio station engineers, there will be no girls. And if there are girls, it's usually only one. All right. We shouldn't be ignorant of the invisible technology on which our modern way of life depends. Next time you're standing alone in a room, try and catch some radio waves.